Shalom. I am here today to talk more about my experience in dealing with the Child Predator Services. And what I wanted to do was kind of continue off where I left off in the last video, where I shared some emails in which I was coerced to sign a safety plan, an agreement with Child Predator Services. And I was not given full disclosure. I was basically kept in the dark about everything, but I was threatened that if I did not agree to this safety plan that CPS had created, that they said, remove my children. You see, when this caseworker, Katie Jones from Salem, Oregon, came to our home, she had a multi-passenger vehicle that she parked down the street from our house. And she was prepared to take my 3 daughters from a previous marriage and my newborn. She had said that if I did not sign this agreement, she was going to take them. And I was ignorant. I had really no clue how corrupt this corporation is. And I didn't even understand it was a corporation. I thought it was a legit government agency that was there to protect families, to help them. And since this time, I have learned a lot, and I continue to learn more about what this corporation, along with its multidisciplinary team that it has in place, is doing and how it's going about its criminal acts, these crimes against humanity. Right here on the screen, I have an ROI, which is a release of information form, and this is what you see. It's from DHS, the Oregon Department of Human Services. Now, because I had no awareness of even the Constitution, about my rights, about how the courts operated, any of that type of stuff, I did what most fearful parents do, and that is, okay, I got to get an attorney. I've got to get someone who knows the law and can represent me, so that they can help me to better make a case for me and my children. And that's actually both my husband and I doing this, but we went and were seeking what it was that we needed to do. And so we ended up hiring a bar attorney, Janine Craig. We didn't know anything about the bar at the time and what that meant, but we went ahead and first we contacted several attorneys trying to find someone who would take our case, and we found out that that was a challenge. There were specialized attorneys that took the cases, and thinking back, there was this one man who I contacted, and he was very abrupt with me. He said, "You didn't let them in your house, did you? You didn't agree to anything, did you?" And anyways, in the midst of all this, he was snapping at me, and at this time, I had told my husband that he was not allowed to come home and that he had to have supervised visits. So it was just me and my 3 daughters and our son. And, my 3 daughters from a previous marriage very much loved my husband and called him dad, and for the most part, the oldest sometimes, but we were all very happy, and it was very hard to have him gone, and to have the newborn, and to be dealing with this corporation and not having the knowledge of what to do. And so I ended up hanging up on this man, and I think I did call him back again, and I'm not sure what approach he would have taken at that time. Now, if he was actually a common law attorney lawyer that would have fought for my rights, helped me to take this to the next level, to be able to hold these criminals accountable. That would have been one thing. But I think that the way that he was approaching it, it probably would have been better than who we went with, which she ended up being a court-appointed attorney that we could have ended up with had we not hired her. And I never liked her. She was very not down to earth. She was rude, straight in our face, and just not a kind woman at all. But we hope that her attitude and her assertiveness would help us in this case, because she had talked about being in a meeting with CPS just the week prior to us contacting her, and how she told CPS what they were going to do, and basically putting them in their place, like I had mentioned before. So we thought that this would work in our favor. Anyways, when we ended up hiring her, she gave us an ROI and said that we needed to sign it in order for her to be able to communicate with CPS and work to close the case and to represent us. So this is what we were given, and you see it says release from one record holder, individual, school employer, agency, medical, or other provider. And then specific information to be disclosed is all client and case related information. And then it's a mutual exchange, which says yes there instead of no. And then it says release to the Office of Attorney Janine Craig. And then purpose, assessment, and planning. And then expiration date is, or the event was case closure. And down at the bottom you see that the name of the staff person was Katie Jones. And the initiating agency's name and location was DHS CW Marion. So I'm going to go to the next page and just read a little bit here about what it says with terms used in mutual exchange. And what it says is a yes allows information to go back and forth between the record holder and the people or programs listed on the authorization. And then, sorry, it's really hard to see. Team is a number of individuals or agencies working together on a regular basis. And it says the members of the team must be identified on this form. And then it goes into some guardianship and custody, about who has custody and how you have to have authorization and all this stuff in order to, commit the criminal acts that they're committing. The entire thing is that this all is being done under deception. I did not know that these corporations are private, they're members of the Private Business Association, and they all do work together on a team, a multidisciplinary team. They're all in the same bed, and it comes down to the court-appointed attorneys and any attorney that you end up getting. The so-called judge, which is actually an administrator, they're not even a judge. They're not working in that capacity, in that official capacity. They are administrative clerks. And then you have the prosecutor, who ends up just taking control of the entire kangaroo court, and they pull parents in to this court building, and they basically make the parent or parents become part of this private business association. And they have meetings. So these courts are actually their meetings, and they discuss and they change their bylaws as they go, and they completely operate under the color of law. So parents who are faced with having their children taken from them, having their family be what they call investigated, are at risk of so much trauma and so much pain and suffering that it is beyond anyone's comprehension unless you have been through it or know someone who has. These people operate in back rooms making decisions, and they have plans A through Z. They know how parents are going to react for the most part and how the children are going to react, and they know what kind of so-called power that they are being protected to enforce, and having other agencies and corporations come in to enforce their unlawful acts. They know that what they can get away with. They know that in these kangaroo courts that these so-called judges, these administrators, are not able to make any types of orders. And so everything truly is a smoke and mirrors type of show that is going on, and it is destroying one family after another. And what we need to start doing is waking up. So what I wanted to do was just talk about kind of how things went with me, so that I can help other parents to make informed decisions on what to do. I'm not giving any type of legal advice. I'm just saying that here is what happened to me. And then from there, hopefully that will help others to make their decisions based on the information that I've provided, that they can research on what to do in the event that this happens to their own family or their neighbors, loved ones. We need to start standing up and helping one another. So I'm going to go ahead and go to a couple emails and show you kind of what was being said, and go from there. All right, so when we hired Janine Craig, not too long after we hired her, she let us know while we were trying to decide what to do in the case. She let us know she was going to Mexico to her vacation home for a week or two. I think it was 2 weeks. And she would be available by phone if need be, or her so-called legal assistant, Karen Kane, would be available. So anyway, she had us come in and she met with us. And what she had told us is that DHS, she said, wanted my husband to take a polygraph. And she said that what we could do is go ahead and have an independent person give the polygraph, and if the results came out not in our favor, that we could go ahead and just throw those results in the garbage, and that then we would decide what to do next. That's exactly what she said, is that we would throw them in the trash, and then we would decide how to go about things, that they didn't have to get those results. We knew a lot of people who were in the so-called law enforcement, and also just started researching other families who had gone through this, and we were trying to figure out how it worked to comply with certain types of assessments that they pushed on parents, and these services that they were pushing, and how the contracts worked. We didn't feel that we could trust this corporation after what we were finding just in a short amount of time of how corrupt they were. And we saw that how there was a conflict of interest when there was these contracts, and so they would contract and have these ROIs signed by the parents in order for them to talk and pass information, they say legally, and they would use these assessments and these results from their test in order to build a case against parents. And we learned of several people countless people who had taken assessments and gone down, jumped through all the hoops, who were innocent, but yet were completely had their lives ruined because of these contractors having biased and flawed research and instruments that they were using, and there was money being exchanged. So there was an incentive, a complete conflict of interest. And so we really were thinking about just having our own polygraph done and then going ahead and going from there. We didn't want to have contracts and all of that in place because we felt like there would be a bias in any type of result. But DHS will not accept any type of results, or like if there's an assessment being done from doctors or different things like that, exams, they will not accept those reports from outside sources, right? They got to be in their little team there. So anyways, we were waiting to see what we needed to do, what would be best for our family, with the understanding that there was and is so much corruption within this corporation, and especially when it comes to certain types of allegations that are made. So this is what Janine said. She said DHS is wanting to do a meeting. DHS and Janine are available and on Wednesday at 2:30. Are you available? Also invited to this meeting is the DA. We are waiting to hear from, it should say him, it says his as well. Let me know, thanks. So at this point, I hadn't talked to or met with anyone else from CPS, and we were trying to hang tight and trying to have Janine Craig take care of everything. We were hoping that she would just tell them to go away, and that what they were doing and coming in was not okay. But we found out, even talking to her, have all these notes about asking her about the Constitution and all that, and she said the Constitution doesn't apply, and she laughed at us. And she's like, that doesn't apply in these courts. They're not going to listen to any constitutional arguments and all of that kind of stuff. And we really were confused about this because we had been dumbed down and thought that is the way that this country ran, and that the courts were that way, and that there was always a good judge and there were lawyers that were fighting for each party, and that there was a trial by jury of one's peers that was untainted. We had no clue, and we were very ignorant, like so many today, and that is something that we need to change. We need to be educated on this and wake up to the reality of what is going on. So anyways, I responded back and I said, we need to know a little about what to expect during this meeting with Janine, DHS, and the DA, so we are prepared beforehand. Could you get back to us on this? I mean, there's no communication. It's just, this is what they want to do. And it's like you think your attorney is going to be there and is going to help you out, so that obviously she had spoken with these people on countless occasions because they do business together, and yet she was just saying, we're just going to meet. Let's just go in there. It was something else, especially when we had to dig up this money. We had to sell so much to try to get this money in order to hire her. Just ridiculous. So Karen Kane said, hi there. I have left a message for you earlier regarding setting a time to speak with Janine before the meeting. However, Janine just got back in the office and said to hold tight on this matter for now. Janine spoke to the DA this morning, which is Brendan Murphy in Salem, okay? And she is pretty sure that the meeting will be taken off. She will advise further once she has spoken to all parties regarding this. Okay, so, okay. So I said, thank you. If Janine, okay, so this is going to be later. Sorry, I wasn't sure what order I had this in. So as you see on the screen, I did meet with, it ended up being that they didn't want to meet with us, me and my husband. They ended up just wanting to meet with me. I took my video camera in with me, and I said I would like to video record this. I asked Janine Craig about this. She said, DHS isn't going to let you video record this, and laughed at me. And I said, well, I would like to. And she's like, they won't do the meeting with that. And so anyways, I ended up taking it out. And anyways, anything that I had for any type of recording didn't end up working out. So I wanted to do it on the big video that I had, and you just couldn't hear anything with the one that I had, unfortunately. But basically they said that they were going to take us to court, and that they were going to petition the court for temporary custody of my children, our children, and that is what they were going to do. And that Amber McClellan, who's the supervisor of Katie Jones, said that she didn't feel right to take me into the court without having first met me. And so that's basically why we were there, and if I had any questions. So they were going to take me into court, and I don't have the notes right here in front of me, but it was like a couple days after this. It was within the week that they were wanting to push it into the courts, the so-called courts. So it's after we got to this court, we were in front of, I think that day it was so-called Judge Lindsay Partridge. Yes, it was. And what he ended up doing was listening to CPS, and we never got a chance to talk at all. I had just met my so-called attorney out in the waiting area, and then my husband was pulled in to meet with his, and then my ex had his so-called attorney, and then our children had their own attorney. And so we were separated. They basically said, this is who we are, this is what's going on, and we went in there, and we never got a chance to even speak. CPS basically asked the court for temporary custody of our children. The so-called judge, which is an administrator, granted their request, and then right after the so-called kangaroo court was adjourned, Miss McClellan, she turned around and started laughing and joking around. I was completely, I just want to say my jaw dropped to the ground. I had tears falling down my face, and hearing her laugh was something that will stick with me forever. She started talking with everyone. They had trainees in the so-called courtroom. The attorneys were all talking together, and it was just like, oh, another one done. And we walked out of the so-called courtroom and tried to put ourselves together and decide what to do next. I know that my husband felt the same way. My ex, he didn't know what to think. And that's exactly what happened. So then I said, I sent this email to Janine Craig, because obviously she did not go to the courts to continue to so-called represent me. And this is what I said. Thank you. If Janine hasn't heard, DHS took temporary legal custody. Well, legal is, that means under the statutes and codes, it's completely unlawful. Is you cannot take one's living flesh away from them, from a living flesh, from someone who is a human. And there's so much about how they're getting away with this. I just will keep it brief right now. But they took temporary legal custody and petitioned for full jurisdiction, unlike what they said during the meeting on June 4th, when she asked if they were looking to remove the kids, and they said no, they wanted to work with me. Is she no longer able to represent one of us? And was check already sent out? Okay, so that is what I said. And then she came back and said, I am not sure if Janine knows the outcome. Okay, give me a break. She has been out of the office and will do a closing letter and final bill at the time the remainder of the trust will be refunded. Okay, so interesting, the trust. Okay, so this is how they're operating. So sorry, this is kind of blurry, but it says, could you please email me a copy of the invoices? Thank you. And she said, you should have received a letter, invoice, and check in the mail. Have you not gotten this? And I said, we received the letter and an invoice with a check dated June 4th through the 10th. We would like the invoices emailed if you would. Please, we misplaced the former invoice. Thank you. So we were looking for an invoice that she had sent out, and she never ended up sending that invoice. We tried to get it, but I am going to show you in a moment what was sent, and the extortion money that was used was taken from us in order to really do nothing for us, but put us further behind in our accounts. And there was no assistance at all given whatsoever. So she was there in order to try to coerce us to agree with CPS and to comply with everything that they had said. All right, so this is the invoice that she sent, and it's titled DHS Matter. You see over here she's got her the crown. Okay, this is the bar, the British Accreditation Registry. She's under the crown. That's who her allegiance is to. And it's just learning more and more about who these attorneys are and what they're doing. It is just disgusting and so wrong. But basically you have under here attorney, mediator, parenting coordinator. So obviously she does full-time, so-called family law. And it says, enclosed, please find your final billing together with the balance of your retainer in the amount of $607.50. As I explained to you both, I am unable to continue my representation of both of you since DHS has concluded its evaluation and chose to file formal petitions with the court. It has been my pleasure to represent you. If you have any further questions or comments, please feel free to contact us. Sincerely, Janine West Craig. Okay, so I guess because CPS went forward, her contract had ended with CPS, and so she was not able to, even though she's part of the bar attorneys, her card was right there by all the other so-called family attorneys, and but because of this and the contracts that they do, she was not able to move on and to help us, which so-called help, because she didn't help us at all. She just took our money. But anyways, I'm guessing because we were provided with their attorneys, right? They were appointed to us, and there's a lot of information about why they appoint attorneys, all the money that they get from all of this. But you turn to the next page, and basically, I mean, the amount that she charged for doing these things, reviewed an email and response to DHS, 20 minutes, an hour and 20, or $125 an hour for that. So that was $25. Then preparation of email to client, review email from client. That was 20 minutes, $125 an hour for $25. A telephone calls, and it says to from client left message, telephone conference with clients, times 3, 40 minutes, and that was $50 at $125 an hour. Telephone calls to from Katie Jones, 2 times. Left detailed message regarding representation. No charge, she said, 20 minutes. Then we have conference with the DA regarding meeting with DHS. So she had a conference call with the DA. $50 for that. 20 minutes at $250 an hour. And then we have a telephone conference with the client. $25, 10 minutes for $250 an hour. A telephone conference with DHS, scheduled a meeting, 30 minutes, $250 an hour, and then $75 for that one. And then a telephone conference with my husband regarding meeting, and let's see, it says new attorneys, client upset about meeting, $50 for that, and it was 20 minutes at $250 an hour. And then a meeting with the client, meeting with DHS and client, prepare email to attorneys, and that was a whopping $300, and it looks like $50. 1 hour and 40 minutes, it looks like, at $250 an hour. I'm trying to see regarding meeting with new attorneys. I'm not sure what that was. And then she's got all these other things on here. But that is what was charged for her to basically communicate with her team members, which she communicates on a daily basis. But she charged us so that we were able to hear that we needed that. CPS wanted us to do a polygraph and wanted us to come in for a meeting with the DA and all that. And then she said she couldn't represent us after CPS decided to move forward because we did not go ahead and sign on to their contracted service providers. So I just wanted to share this because it is disturbing, or it should be, to all families in this nation, to all parents, as to what is going on in these kangaroo courts today. And it doesn't matter if it's just the anti-family kangaroo courts, which are actually private business association meetings, or the anti-family, I just said that, sorry, or the criminal courts that are basically just committing criminal acts and are completely unlawful. There is no common law, which the Constitution reveals is the only true court of record, and there's no due process that is occurring, and the juries are tainted if you ever do get to a jury. So all of these men and women are acting under the color of law, and they are using their black robes and their titles and all of these contracts in order to get one over on the people, the living flesh. And instead of the living flesh, the people being the plaintiffs in these so-called courts, they flip the script and they are taking the role as sovereign and putting the innocent parents in the position of defendants, trying to defend themselves in the midst of these wolves who are a pact. They are one together. And so that is what we need to look at as parents, is that we need to be together. We need to be working together in order to end this corruption. I'm going to turn to one more screen before I end this video, and so just hold on one second. So what I'm going to end with is just what I have here on the screen, which says, live, laugh, and love. We're all in this boat together. We are doing everything that we can to row the boat together in the same direction, all of us working as a team in order to move forward, to move sideways sometimes and to go backwards, to try to make sure that we are maneuvering through the crafty schemes that this bar attorney and all of their cronies are using and they are devising in order to destroy families. Now, they may not be looking at it as they are out there destroying families, but that is exactly what's going on. And anyone who can step back and see the atrocities that are being committed, and you can see the numbers of different types of now allegations, these anonymous reports being made. You can see how many parents have had their parental rights, their natural rights taken by these criminals, and children who are being drugged with psychotropic drugs, who are being abused, neglected in these foster care homes and being adopted out and being made to bond with what they call new families and to start their lives over, to have everything torn apart, but yet to point the finger to the parents who have never had due process in a true court of record, but are labeling them, calling them abusive and neglectful, where there has been no trial whatsoever in a common law court. There hasn't even been a trial in one of their kangaroo courts. It's disgusting, it's wrong, and we need to continue to speak out, and we need to video record everything. We have a right to do so for our protection, for documentation, and that is something that we all can do, and using our voices to do in order to just expose this corruption and to stand together and to make sure that we know that we aren't alone. Our children need us, and we need to keep fighting for truth and to be educated on how this criminal cartel is getting away with legalized human trafficking. So I thank you for hanging in there and watching. I hope that it was helpful and that you will continue to research and be prepared for anything that may come your way, because this nation is operating fully out in the sea, taking people way out into the waters and basically drowning as many as possible. But before they drown us, they try to take as much money, making profit off of each one of us, shoving services down our throats. And that is what private business associations do. They operate a business, and it's about how they can get as much money as possible. So I thank you for watching, and hope you like and subscribe and you share, and we'll see you next time.